In this video, I'm going to go over hotkeys for battle aces. On the top, I've got the default settings, and on the bottom here, I've got what I ended up changing them to during the closed beta. Leading up to the closed beta, I'd been playing a bit of StarCraft Remastered, and I finally took the time to remap all my hotkeys in that game. It gives you the ability to customize all those now. And what I decided to do in that game was use a grid system. So in StarCraft Remastered, you have a 3x3 grid for all the buildings and abilities and things that you'd use in the bottom right. So for the most part, I mapped that to QWE, ASD, ZXC, with a handful of exceptions. An example that might be like the siege tank. I did give a separate hotkey for siege and unsiege, which is pretty handy, and actually would be a great thing for the mortar in battle aces as well. And then the other thing that I remapped was the like attack, stop, hold position, patrol, those types of things. I actually took some inspiration from Stormgate, which I've got up on the screen down here. They had a short like open test period for their game. I think it was like a Steam Next Fest or something like that. And I really liked the layout they did for like unit commands. They put them all on that middle row. So they put attack on A, stop on S, hold position on D. I think this was move on F, and then patrol on G. So I pretty much copied that for StarCraft Remastered, and I found that worked really, really well. And I liked that quite a bit. And then abilities kind of on that bottom row, um, which worked out really good with my grid system because typically in the grid, your unit abilities do show up in that bottom row, and then that corresponded to ZXC. Um, so I did try using the default settings in Battle Aces for a little bit, but I found when I used units that had abilities, just having this entire row overlapped with what you use to make units, led to some mistakes. So I was playing a game where I had recalls, and I had my recall ability on Q, and I thought I had my core selected, and I was spamming Q, thinking I was making more of the recall unit, but what I was really doing was I was just hitting the recall button a bunch, which by itself doesn't do anything, but it basically activates the ability, and then a left click will recall to a base. So I'm sitting there hitting Q, and then eventually I left click, and I accidentally teleported all my recall units back to my base when it was completely unnecessary. They were just out on the map defending my mortars, and yeah, it was just a really bad move, and I just had to wait till my recalls could walk back out onto the map. Um, so I didn't want that overlap just to help avoid those issues. So I did move all my abilities to that lower row, and then that ended up being consistent with what I was using for StarCraft Remastered, which was pretty handy. Um, and then since I moved those there, I needed to move, expand and Foundry Tech, which I was gonna move anyway. I don't like them being here. They're really close to all these other buttons you use for making units and attack moves and things like that. So it's pretty easy to accidentally hit these with them so close. So I did move them to the F keys. Um, and also with C and V so close to each other, I've definitely fat fingered these buttons, and like I intended to pick Foundry and I accidentally picked Starforge or vice versa. And I've actually seen streamers do that too, and it's pretty hilarious to see. But yeah, I really wanted to mitigate that, so I threw them on the F keys. I put expand on F5, skip F6, Foundry Tech F7, skip F8, and Starforge Tech on F9. So just every other F key basically. Um, F1 through 3 are taken up by some menu commands. So it would be nice if Battle Aces freed those up later for us to use however we want. But yeah, that's what I did in the meantime. Yeah, S is hold position. I think it would be nice if Battle Aces did add in like a true stop, because right now the stop in Battle Aces is more like a hold position where they just won't move at all. But I think stop has a place in RTS too. So I think it'd be nice to have that. And then I forget if we had a patrol button or not. I didn't really mess around with that, but yeah, that's pretty much what I had to share about the hotkeys. I guess I did have one other idea I wanted to share too. Um, just a suggestion for the Battle Aces team too. Um, I think the use of the tab for selecting the core and making units is intuitive. I think it makes sense with past RTSs where you do select the building to make the units. Um, but I think there could be the potential for actually removing the tab button entirely, and instead, there's all this room on the keyboard. Just let users map it how they need to. You can have attack move on a on a key. You can have all your abilities on keys, and you can have all your unit production on completely separate keys, so that even if you have an army selected, you don't have to deselect that army. You don't need to select your core to make units. You can just press whatever key corresponds to that unit to make it. The only little problem with that is setting the rally for the core. So as is, you would tab to select your core and then click out on the map to set your rally point. Um, but if you have units selected, your clicks are going to move units or click to select units. Um, but to solve that problem, you could basically just assign the rally point to like middle mouse click, for example, since I don't think that's used for anything right now. And otherwise, you could set it to side buttons, like mouse 4, mouse 5, or whatever people call it, because a lot of gamers have those two side buttons on their mice too. So that could be an idea. Um, and maybe that's not the default. Maybe that's like a special um, option that users could toggle on or off. But I think that would be pretty useful. And then, yeah, also just make it easier and so that you don't have to cycle between your core and your units at that point. So, um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I had to share. Just wanted to go over hotkeys and what I ended up doing. I'm definitely curious to hear what other people did. It might give me more ideas for the future setups I'd like to try too. So yeah, post in the comments what your keybinds were, or make a video talking about it yourself as well. I'd love to hear about that. But yeah, that's all I got, and then I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.